Welcome in as we start another week. Appreciate you joining me for today's edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. So Donald Trump did it. Defeated GOP rival Nikki Haley in South Carolina's primary Saturday, securing yet another win for the former president. And it didn't take long either. Wow. I mean, literally, the networks called it like as soon as the polls closed at 7 o'clock. By 7:01, they were projecting Trump the winner. He's also picking up some additional endorsements. We'll talk about that in a minute, too. Senate Minority Leader John Thune, the number 2 Senate Republican leader, is endorsing the former president. And leading contenders to serve as Trump's running mate are turning up the volume in their praise for the former president in what some are saying are simply auditions for a spot on the 2024 ticket. South Carolina's Senator Tim Scott is one of those. From Politico over the weekend, Nikki Haley's running into a wall of hard feelings among conservatives in her home state who feel that she ditched them for national politics years ago, and I think that probably was evident with the results on Saturday. And hundreds of migrants were dropped off on the side of the road in San Diego, California on Friday after funding for a reception center ran dry, according to the Associated Press.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Well, it was an easy victory. Trump defeating GOP rival Nikki Haley in her own state of South Carolina Saturday, securing yet another win for the former president. The race was called almost immediately after the polls closed at 7. Have you ever seen one called that quickly? I knew the polls, of course, were closing at 7, and like at 7 o'clock and 30 seconds, I started getting the notifications from all the various networks who had already called it. Trump secured a number of delegates. Some of that's still shaking out as it looks like Haley did pick up a few delegates in, I guess, the 1st congressional district. She did well, or did better, in Charleston, Beaufort County, Richland County, although Richland County is a pretty heavily Democrat county. Trump said as he came out on the stage, and again, he came out early as well, saying this was a little sooner than we anticipated and even a bigger win than we anticipated. He said, I've never seen the Republican Party as united as it is right now. The former president did not mention Haley, which is kind of rare. He was joined on stage by a number of South Carolina Republican leaders, including Senator Tim Scott, who, despite being appointed to Congress by Ms. Haley in 2013, endorsed Trump after he suspended his own campaign back in November. Senator Lindsey Graham was there too. Of course, Graham has been a longtime supporter of Donald Trump. He butted heads with him back in 2016 as Lindsey made his effort in getting the GOP nomination. He was heavily booed again by the crowd as President Trump introduced Senator Graham.
Another man, not a lot of people know him. He doesn't do too much television. He happens to be a little bit further left than some of the people on the stage. But I always say, when I'm in trouble on the left, I call up Lindsey Graham and he straightens it out so fast. And I'll tell you, no, remember, I love him. He's a good man. Come up here, Lindsey. Come up here, Lindsey. Come here.
Okay, are you ready? America, the nightmare you're facing is just about over. Help is on the way. This is the most qualified man to be president of the United States. And let it be said, that South Carolina created the biggest political comeback in American history.
Of course, Haley was banking on doing better in her own home state, as she did not do well in Iowa and New Hampshire, although she will tell you that she did better than expected in those two states. The idea was that she was going to build the momentum and come to South Carolina and kind of let her home folk clean things up. Well, it just didn't happen. She's not deterred, though. She doesn't seem to be discouraged. She announced on Saturday that she's staying in the race, just like she said last Thursday when she held a news conference just prior to President Trump's town hall meeting with Fox News that was recorded in Greenville. At Haley's campaign watch party Saturday, her supporters did not seem ready to throw in the towel, though it was quiet in the room when Trump declared his victory and was declared the winner on the screen. And as I talked to many people who voted either Saturday or in early voting, it was just pretty evident that Nikki Haley was not going to do very well in her home state. Let's take, for example, Kathy. You heard me talking about Kathy last week. Kathy's been a long-time listener, and I mentioned I was going to be over in Spartanburg, and this was early voting. This was Thursday. And Kathy came by to visit with us, and so I had a chance to talk with Kathy for a minute. She said that Nikki Haley is embarrassing South Carolina and believes that Haley is being funded by people who don't have South Carolina and America's best interest in mind.
Yes. Well, actually, I wish she was not on the ballot because I feel like she is embarrassing South Carolina. I voted for her twice as governor, but I didn't realize that she's basically a Democrat and that she doesn't have our best interest at heart for America and for South Carolina, and that she's being funded by some people that we probably wouldn't like. And so I am fearful for what could happen if he's indicted and arrested and there she stands as the last one standing. I just hope that doesn't happen.
I asked Kathy some of the important issues that she thought were driving people to either support Donald Trump or Nikki Haley or any of the other candidates. There were other candidates, as you found out on Saturday when you walked into the polling place. Kathy said that the border, the economy, and foreign affairs are the issues that she's looking for. She believes President Trump can continue the success he had in closing the border and can get our economy back on track.
The border. And we saw what he could do with the border the first time. There were less people coming over the border than ever. And he deported the people. He worked with the Mexican president not to send people over because we would stop funding him and those monies would dry up. And he's already shown how he can succeed by closing the border the best he could. And if Congress had worked with him, he could have closed the border 100%. But that's what we need, the Congress to work with him and completely close that border. Legal immigration is wonderful, but illegal immigration is not. It just changes our whole world, and we don't want to become what Europe has become, where Muhammad becomes the number one name of a boy born in Europe. So we don't need that in America. And the economy, we know what he did for the economy. When I was working during that 4 years, I received more raises while he was president than I had 10 years before that. So I know what he does for the economy. And for other countries respected him and America, whereas now they don't.
Also had a chance to catch up with Spartanburg County GOP Chairman Curtis Smith, who says he was happy to have all the various candidates coming through the state to give people a choice. But he, of course, predicted a big win for Trump. As it turned out, he made a very, very good prediction there.
As a local party chairman, it's a little different this year. We have a very popular former president who is leading in South Carolina. Polls show anywhere from 25, 30 points or more. We also have a former governor of South Carolina on the ballot. As a party chairman, has it been hard navigating
Well, if you'll recall, having all these different candidates, DeSantis was here, Ramaswamy was here, Nikki Haley is here, Tim Scott was here. We had a lot of popular people running. And here on Election Day, it's down to Nikki Haley and President Trump. So what we have is now is down to the final two. And people are going to be able to choose. Can they vote for the president or vote for Nikki Haley? We have a lot of people that have come to us and said we want an alternate person, so this gives them their opportunity. At the end of the day, our polls are telling us that Mr. Trump will probably have between 65 and 70% of the South Carolinian vote, and Nikki Haley will have somewhere between 15 and 22% of the South Carolina vote.
And one final one, Jared Spencer, who happens to be mayor of Cowpens and, of course, a voter in Spartanburg County, says he believes most of the votes that Haley received were not necessarily for her, but were anti-Trump.
Even the Republicans that do support Nikki Haley, and that's their choice if they want to do that, but I don't think they're going to be as vocal about it. It's more of an anti-Trump type vote. I don't know if there's as much support for Haley as it is an anti-Trump vote. So we'll probably see a lot of that in the polls. That's where of course, you've heard rumors about Democrat crossover votes, anything to keep Trump out of this position. So that's not necessarily the vote totals and the percentages coming in. I think you'll have to read between the lines there. Did these people really vote for Nikki Haley, or was it just an anti-vote Trump?
However, again, doesn't appear this is going to deter Nikki Haley. Nell Parker, a Haley supporter who was at her event on Saturday, said, "I don't think it's over," saying that Haley has vowed to continue to fight through Super Tuesday. Her campaign said it did everything that it could to win South Carolina, but was ultimately unable to break into Trump's base in the state. Haley's campaign manager, Betsy Ankney, told CNN Saturday that the campaign plans to flood Super Tuesday states with money, including a 7-figure ad buy in the target states, along with national cable and digital spots, is their strategy going in. Had a chance to catch up with my buddy Nate Loip, who is chairman of the 4th District Republican Club. He says that South Carolina, of course, has a history of choosing winners in the first in the South primary. He predicted Trump would win South Carolina, which he did on Saturday. But Nate also said that he believes that Trump's going to go on to win big on Super Tuesday and believes that it's time for the GOP to unify behind President Trump.
In South Carolina, we pick presidents, we pick the presidential nominees, and that has been true for many, many cycles, save one in the not too distant past. Super Tuesday, I just don't see the trajectory changing too much. We do have some open primary states, but a lot of those are still winner take all, and people want to vote for the winner. And although there are people who may not support President Trump, I think a lot of them will be discouraged, probably stay home. So I think Super Tuesday is going to be a glorious night for President Trump. I believe that the nomination is already wrapped up at this point. I think it'll be even more wrapped up by Super Tuesday. And at that point, I think we really need to button down and say we gave other candidates a chance at our nomination, but the handwriting has been on the wall for a long time. It's time to unify and support President Trump and prepare for that general election, whether it be President Biden, which I'm not quite sure that he's going to be the nominee, but whoever it is, we need to be all hands on deck for President Trump.
It was a busy week in South Carolina last week as Trump literally unleashed a crew of surrogates traveling all around the state. If you notice some, maybe on Facebook, Instagram, some of the others, you saw Vivek Ramaswamy, who was in South Carolina, stumping for Trump, Laura Trump, several of his kids, Eric and Don Jr. He delivered remarks Friday night in a Rock Hill, South Carolina, rally with about 6,000 supporters. In that Friday event, he said that Haley was going to have a very bad day on Saturday, and of course, he predicted that right too. He was right. Backers of Donald Trump, including Trump himself and former 2024 candidate Tim Scott, have been very vocal about wanting Haley out of the race. And it appears that that's sort of a theme that is developing. What do you think? Is it time for Nikki Haley, for the good of the party, to call it quits and rally behind Donald Trump, or at least get out of his way? Love to get your comments on the Furman Ford text line. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Leave a quick voice message if you'd like, and emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Trump picked up an additional endorsement over the weekend. Senate Minority Whip John Thune, he's the number 2 Senate Republican leader. He endorsed President Trump. It's a key win for Trump from the so-called establishment wing of the Republican Party. The South Dakota Republican is minority leader under Mitch McConnell. Thune told Fox, the primary results in South Carolina make clear that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee for president in this year's pivotal presidential election. The choice before the American people was crystal clear. It's Donald Trump or Joe Biden. He said, I support former President Donald Trump's campaign to win the presidency, and I intend to do everything I can to see that he has a Republican majority in the Senate working with him to restore American strength at home and abroad. Thune and Trump spoke on the phone, we're told, Saturday night after his commanding victory in South Carolina. Wasn't clear before now whether Thune, who's seen as one of McConnell's potential successors to lead the U.S. Senate, would even endorse anyone. But again, I think this is sort of the theme that is slowly coming together. It's time for the Republican Party to get behind the man that most people are choosing. The Sunday announcement added pressure on McConnell, who has brushed off scrutiny as to whether or not he will, in fact, support Donald Trump too. McConnell said at a press conference earlier this month, when asked about the race, he said, I've stayed essentially out of it, and when I change my mind about that, I'll let you know. Well, Senator McConnell, it's time to rally behind our party's nominee, or soon going to be the party nominee, so that we can win in November. Of course, with Saturday's win, the question of who's the vice president got even louder. If you watched any of the video and any of Trump's the victory party on Saturday, who was standing front and center right there by him? Senator Tim Scott. It's leading contenders who have served Trump in various capacities and who have been surrogate speakers for Trump appear to be auditioning for the spot on the 2024 ticket. We're going to get into some of the details on that. First, let me talk with you about my journey with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Over 3 years ago, I made that call to Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition in Greenville. They have offices in Greenville, in Asheville, Charlotte, also in Lake Norman, and virtually all around the world. So if you're listening today, doesn't matter if you live in the Carolinas or Georgia, if you're listening, call right now if you want to get healthy and if you want to lose that excess weight. 864-252-4925. They can do virtual visits, which they did a lot of during COVID, and they've just maintained that relationship with a lot of people all around the country. 864-252-4925. This program is not a diet. It's not a fad diet. It's all about nutrition, what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. And I promise you, you start today, you make that call today, set up your initial consultation. In just a few weeks, you too will be talking about losing 10, 20, 30 pounds. Find them online at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. Senator Tim Scott stressed as he stood next to Trump at a rally, this was Friday night before Saturday's primary. He said, let South Carolina send a message to all America. The Republican primary is over, and Donald Trump is our nominee. Of course, Scott is considered to be a very positive, uplifting conservative champion who ended his own White House run back in November and immediately endorsed Trump. He joined the former president on the campaign trail in New Hampshire and has been all around the state in South Carolina. In fact, Trump has jokingly said that Senator Scott is a better campaigner for Trump than he was for himself. There's others out there that are being considered. Among them, another former rival who also was in South Carolina, Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a multimillionaire biotech entrepreneur, author, political commentary. He's spent several days last week around the state of South Carolina stumping for Trump. Representative Byron Donald of Florida, a longtime Trump supporter as well, joined the former president on Friday at the same rally and also at the Black Conservative Foundation Gala in Columbia. Donald said, "We have a true opportunity which doesn't come along very often in politics to elect real leadership back to the White House." South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is another name. She's a longtime Trump supporter as well. She's been a surrogate speaker as well. In an apparent dig at former 2024 contenders Senator Scott and Vivek Ramaswamy, she told a gathering of conservatives on Friday, "I've always supported the fact that our next president needs to be President Trump. I was one of the first people to endorse Donald Trump to be president last year. When everyone was asking me if I was going to consider running, I said no. Why would you run for president when you know you can't win?" Then, of course, you have Representative Elise Stefanik from New York. She's the fourth-ranking House Republican, another top Trump loyalist. So there's a whole list there. A former Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, a 2020 Democrat presidential candidate who later turned to an independent. She's been mentioned as well. I can't imagine why we would want an independent on the ticket, but hey, her name has been mentioned. During the Fox News town hall in South Carolina last week, President Trump referenced Senator Scott, who was in the audience, front row, and Laura Ingraham was asking him, trying to get him to name who his vice president would be, and you know he named several, but he pointed to Scott and said that man would make a good vice president. We'll see. Scott has been very humbled by the confidence that Donald Trump seems to place in him. And we still have some time before that decision has to be made. From Politico over the weekend, as we kind of analyze what happened on Saturday when it comes to Nikki Haley and why she would even consider staying in the race. Before we get to the details of that Politico article, let me talk with you about Furman Ford. Do you need a new vehicle, or would you like to purchase a pre-owned vehicle that you can trust? You need to look no further than Furman Ford, our friends in Lawrence. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. What I love about Furman Ford is they're locally owned, operated by the family. Their name is on the sign because their name is literally on the line with every transaction, and they treat you like family. If you need service, you don't need to wait weeks or, in some cases, months to get service. They'll get you in as quickly as possible, and you don't have to even purchased your vehicle from Furman Ford, and it doesn't have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. If you're ready to purchase a new vehicle, no better place than Furman Ford. Just go down and sit down with one of their sales folks, or talk with Jim or Matthew Furman as well. FurmanFord.com is where you can find them online. Take a look at all their inventory. FurmanFord.com. FurmanFord.com. So is Nikki Haley out? Some feel that the reason she didn't do any better on Saturday is because she has betrayed some of her former supporters, some of her former base. Politico wrote an excellent article, and of course some of this is sort of after the fact because we kind of saw this on Saturday with the outcome, didn't we? Politico writes, since leaving the governor's office, Haley has largely ignored the state's grassroots activists. According to interviews with more than a dozen GOP operatives across South Carolina, one striking illustration came in December when a junior-level staffer on Haley's presidential campaign sent the South Carolina GOP an email asking how to find out about county party events so that Haley could begin sending surrogates to them. It was a surprisingly basic question coming from the campaign of the state's two-term former governor, Politico writes, and to state GOP officials who had been communicating for months with her rivals' campaigns. It was off-putting that it came so late in the election cycle, and from someone so unfamiliar with the state party. It was also reflective of a significant problem Haley had in South Carolina, and it showed up on Saturday. One that has more to do with her than with the frontrunner Donald Trump. For years after she left the governor's office, Haley failed to nurture her own base of support with the party faithful, Politico says. Alan Olson, formerly the head of the Columbia Tea Party, was quoted saying, "We didn't abandon her, she abandoned us." Politico goes on to write, as Haley's campaign in her home state ahead of Saturday's primary, she encountered an electorate that is not only enamored with Trump, but that she's done little to cultivate. More than a decade after she last won over conservative voters here, Haley had become a stranger at state and local party events, avoiding silver elephant dinners, party conventions, and grassroots gatherings as she embarked on national speaking circuits and book tours. She stumped for Republican candidates around the country, appeared on national TV, and flirted with the question of whether she should run for president or not. Politico goes on, says, when she did enter the race, her presidential campaign made few attempts until late in the contest to work with South Carolina State Party activists or show up at their regular events. The email from Haley's staffer, a copy of which Politico obtained, never received a response from the state party. There was a time when that would have been unthinkable, back when Haley, then a star of the Tea Party movement, rode a wave of far-right anti-establishment fervor to win a crowded Republican primary in 2010. That year, you may recall, Sarah Palin called Nikki Haley a threat to a corrupt political machine as she helped rally hordes of conservative activists behind her. Then, once elected, the young, history-making Southern governor was hailed as one of the country's most conservative state executives, challenging the policies of then-President Barack Obama, slashing state taxes, vetoing spending, and passing one of the strictest illegal immigration bills in the country. Politico points out, though, 14 years later, the Republican Party's activist class has spurned her. In recent polling, Trump was heavily favored in South Carolina's primary, and that proved to be true. That's a far different coalition than the activist base that propelled her to the governorship. Nate Loip, the former chair of the Greenville County GOP, was quoted by Politico saying her campaign has totally overlooked the people who helped put her in the governor's mansion. But Loip said most grassroots Republicans at this point are being brutal right now, and I think a little unfairly brutal to Haley, overlooking what he called all her accomplishments as governor. And I get that. I would say Nikki Haley was a decent governor. I'm not as excited about some of the things that she did as governor, but she didn't hurt us necessarily. Peggy Upchurch, who attended a Haley event earlier, actually I guess it was on Friday in Rock Hill, and describes herself as a big admirer of Nikki Haley from the time as governor. She says she still struggles with the idea that Haley's presidential campaign wouldn't give her well-established conservative women's group any attention. Upchurch, who served as president of the South Carolina Federation of Republican Women last year, said that the group had invited Haley to multiple large events it had hosted, but couldn't get the campaign to even send a video. When they worked with the North Carolina Women's Federation to host a presidential candidate forum at Winthrop University in October, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson attended, no Nikki Haley. Upchurch said of the conservative women's event that her group was sure Haley would want to attend. She was going to be our shining star, she said. Tim Scott had a major conflict, apologized profusely, and we heard nothing from Nikki. A Haley campaign official granted anonymity to speak freely said that their staff did speak with the Women's Federation and informed them that she could not attend due to a conflict. And I think this is what you saw all around the country. And I think this is certainly what you saw in the results of Saturday's primary and why Nikki Haley could not come back home and win. And any way you look at it, I got to believe Nikki Haley has to be terribly disappointed that she didn't do better in her home state of South Carolina. So that raises the question again, should Haley quit? Should she drop out of the race and coalesce, throw her support behind Donald Trump and the Republican Party? There was an editorial published by CNN, of all places, over the weekend. It was written by James Antle, who is executive editor of the Washington Examiner, though, a conservative author and writer. He said it's the end of the road for Nikki Haley. The former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the United Nations has been the last major GOP primary candidate standing against former President Donald Trump, but her defeat in her home state Saturday night makes clear who the Republicans in 2024 presidential choice, who that is. Haley had steadfastly, of course, maintained that she would not budge if South Carolina Republicans opted for Trump. She says she's still raising money at a very quick pace and plans to stay in for through Super Tuesday. Mr. Antle writes, but Haley has won nowhere, including a Nevada primary she lost by 30 points to none of these candidates. Trump, who didn't compete in that contest, won Nevada's separate caucuses, which actually awarded the delegates. She is not favored to win anywhere in the foreseeable future. Polling in Michigan and many of the Super Tuesday states suggests the results will get increasingly worse for Haley from here on out. And he just goes on to say, hey, Nikki, it's time. If you want to read the whole article, I've got it posted. I shared it on my Facebook page. Just go to Facebook, search for Joey Hudson. If you haven't followed me yet on Facebook, please do so. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639 is the Furman Ford text line. Love to get your comments on what Mr. Antle wrote there. Is it time? Is it time that Haley takes a... Why would she stay in if she knows she's not going to win? Why would she stay in? I guess that's the big question. On the Furman Ford text line, Mike P. writes, New York wants Trump's money and assets so they can house and fund the illegal immigration problem. I think you're probably right there, Mike. Phil writes, things are so upside down in America today that Trump repays his loans and gets convicted. Delinquent student loan borrowers get rewarded with forgiveness. That's a good point, Phil. That just... Every time I think about Joe Biden forgiving those the student loan debt at a time like this. Ray says, hello, Joey. I need some hope for America. Our so-called president has decided to give tuition forgiveness in spite of the SCOTUS ruling that he cannot do this. The question is, how does SCOTUS enforce their ruling? Without an armed force, how does the court enforce their rulings? Could this be a test by the White House to see if they can do whatever they wish? Well, that's kind of where they're headed here, Ray. If that's the case, then our republic is over. I worry about the country we are leaving to our grandchildren. Please tell me there is hope. Well, there is hope. There is hope, Ray. And that hope comes in November. In November at the polls, when we take back control of our country, and that we don't forget how we got here. Katrina says, hey, Joey. It's a beautiful day in South Carolina for a primary. This was on Saturday, I guess. Just drove past 3 Nikki signs by a polling spot on Brusha Creek. The first I've seen for years. The first I've seen during the year that she's been running. That should ink her the win. Smiley face, tongue in cheek. Katrina says, I nearly had to turn down the clip you played of Joe's new student debt vote grab scheme. Makes my blood pressure raise. Safe travels. Looking forward to what you have for us next week. Be well, Katrina. Tomorrow is the big day. We're going to have some special shows over the next few days. Today we're getting you updated on what happened on Saturday. Faye says, Joey, do we know what percentage of the state's population has voted in both primaries? Wonder if there's a large enough percentage who didn't vote that could make a difference if they vote in November. Graham didn't get a standing ovation at CPAC. My. And I got an update from our person who sends us our text of encouragement. Says, Joey, I'm getting out of the hospital and beginning to walk today and talk after having strokes and seizures at 52. So say this if you would, failure would never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough. With God's help, sincerely, Joel, God bless. Thank you, Joel, for that. Thanks for the update. And hey, we're still all praying for you, Joel. Full recovery. Susan says, I've just figured it out, Joey. Nikki is only staying in this race because she's tired of being called a quitter. She's already been won 3 times as a governor, as a UN ambassador and as a Boeing board member. She doesn't want to be called a four-time quitter. Well, she may stay in there, but I can't imagine why. Hundreds of migrants were dropped off on the side of the road in San Diego, California. This was Friday after supposedly funding for a reception center had run dry. This is a report from the Associated Press. I'll give you the details in a moment. First, let me talk with you about Discounted Appliance Warehouse. You need a new dishwasher, a new refrigerator, new stove possibly, washer and dryer. Go no further than Pickens and talk with my friend Jeff and Johnny and Kyle and the whole team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have all the knowledge that you need to have the confidence that you're going to make the right purchase. There's a lot of options when it comes to appliances. They'll show you around the warehouse. It's just over 11,000 square feet, and it's packed slam full of new appliances waiting for you. Quite often, you can buy today and use today as well. They have extended warranties. They have an award-winning service department. I can attest to that. Boy, are they good. And they have you covered well beyond the sale. Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Find them online at dawpickens.com. So Border Patrol buses dropped off hundreds of illegals from places like China, Kazakhstan, Ecuador, and Rwanda, among other countries, at a San Diego bus stop instead of a county-funded reception center that closed down Thursday of last week after they run out of funds. AP is reporting on this, saying that the reception center was run by SBCS, which is a local nonprofit formerly known as South Bay Community Services, which San Diego County had given $6 million to provide illegals with food, phone charging stations, and travel advice, along other services. San Diego, like many cities, New York, Chicago, is facing strain amid the country's ongoing illegal crisis. The city saw a daily average of 800 illegal crossings related arrests in January, including an average of over 100 Chinese illegal immigrants a day. Think about that, 100 Chinese. And we think these people are coming from South America. Where did 100 Chinese come from? And we've seen this. We've seen reports of this all for 2 or 3 years now. This organization served 81,000 illegals in the county since October 11th, according to a recent news release. With SBCS's reception center now closed, Border Patrol said to expect roughly 350 illegals to be released on the streets by Friday of this past week. Nora Vargas, chairman of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, defended the performance of the Migrant Reception Center, which was supposed to stay open through March of this year at the earliest. Vargas said, nobody is perfect, especially when you're trying to fill a gap from the federal government. No, she's going to blame it on the federal government now. Vargas isn't the only official seeking increased federal support. Some of the larger cities, again, as I mentioned, New York City, Chicago, others, are literally begging the Biden administration to send them billions more of funding. Rather than suggesting they close the border, they just want more money to give to these illegals. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Appreciate you joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Join our mailing list. Just go to joeyhudson.com, click on the Connect with Joey button so you can receive emails with the most up-to-date news. And find me on YouTube. Several of you have emailed me, text me, that you'd found me on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search for Joey Hudson. Be sure and subscribe and click on notifications. I appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Back tomorrow with a special broadcast, and I promise you're going to love this, a special broadcast. I'll give you a little hint. Mike Gallagher's involved as well. You'll be able to listen to the Mike Gallagher Show. Go to mikeonline.com or download the Mike Gallagher Show app as well. We got some special programming for you this week. Hope you'll join me tomorrow. Until then, remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.